Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Property Hustler Show. My name is Andrew, and today Ping and I are joined by Ala Lady Gina. She is a real estate investor with a focus on multifamily residential properties, raising capital to expand her real estate portfolio. She is the executive director of the Canadian Real Estate Women's Association, and she is a mother of three, still powering through and growing her real estate portfolio. So, Ala, great to have you on the show.
Hi, and thank you for having me.
I started asking you these questions because this was our connecting piece, and also it is remarkably interesting to us. I know that you mentioned you wanted to talk about the leverage aspect. You're doing what you're doing for a reason, and there's definitely testament in your own story. So really quickly, I want to make sure we touch on what you're currently doing, where you're currently at. You've been doing real estate investing for a while.
Yes, we bought the first property ever in 2013. Then we sold it and bought our first BRRRR in 2015. And since then, we were either buying a house or having a baby.
How many kids do you have?
3. So
I guess outnumbered.
So at that point, when we had like 3 rental properties and 3 kids, we're like, okay, we're done, we're good, like we're accomplished. And then we realized like, there must be something else because we cannot just sit and retire kind of thing. So we just realized that, okay, let's do what we do well. And since we couldn't do more babies necessarily, we decided to grow the portfolio. And since then...
Can't grow more babies, have to grow the portfolio.
Something
you have to
has
choose
to
your
grow.
priorities. And actually, I also was, as a mom, I was thinking, God, please send me some kind of idea that I can give to my kids and they can use it after I'm gone, so that they can use that idea. It's like a fishing rod. So that I don't have to worry about them having enough fish.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm pretty sure that, and I know that I'm lucky and the universe loves me, that it heard me and gave me the idea of real estate. And I was literally looking actively for any business ideas. What can I do? And then successfully give it to my kids, hoping that they will like the idea. And then the universe just told me, like, you do so well in real estate. What else are you looking for? And that was, and I was like, oh yeah. And me and my husband were like, what are we looking for? We already have real estate. Let's just scale that. And I think now how I like to tell to my kids, I don't care what you're doing, if you're an artist or if you're an actor, like I don't care. But the money you make, you're going to put in real estate. Yeah. And I tell them, I'm pretty sure you're talented. I don't know what's your talent. You're going to make a lot of money. So make sure that I do demand that you put that in real estate.
Oh, okay, now you're talking like my mom.
Yeah. So I don't push them to be like, you have to go to business school or medical school or engineering. We passed that. I'm the first generation immigrant, and I'm an MD myself. So I don't need to push my kids to go to medical school because I know that it's not necessarily your more. And my husband is a PhD, so he's not going to push my kids to go to, I don't know, like engineering or software or whatever. We're done. Been there, done that. So, but what I do want them to understand that financial literacy, just like health literacy, it's something that you need to learn from the very beginning. And I do want them to see what's going on. We used to take them on the construction side when we were doing, say, single family homes we're in Durham region. And now when we're moved to more of a multifamily properties, when we have property management at every site, we don't take them there anymore. Maybe we should, but not at this point. So now...
How old are they?
They are 15, 6, and 4.
I think you can take them around. I remember growing up, I was like doing some painting, junk removals.
He did do some painting when we have the single family homes, and he would get that money with a tweak though. Like you can get 50%, and if you keep the 20% not taken, I'll double it, but I'll put it towards your bank account.
Oh, nice.
It's like a
so it's up to
government
you.
matching program.
It's like RSP thing. Yeah. So, but it's still like, I don't believe in like that delayed gratification when you took the whole money. So I never claim to take the 100% of it. You still need to take 50% and reward yourself today. Going back to that burnout of high achievers, how often you purchased a property or like closed a great deal and you forgot to celebrate because you're like, okay, that's like, whatever.
Yeah, because they say you need to treat yourself after each other thing or put something away. Some people even say that people who reinvest all the money back into their businesses, if you had just taken 10 or 20% and put it aside each time, because your
That's
business can go wrong.
generous.
I mean, however much you want
Compound
to count.
interest, eh?
Yeah, no, but if you think about it, some people have hit points where they reinvest everything, all in, and then something happens and they lose everything.
Or just
Right.
your life ends.
That's true.
No, but we're a bit cynical because we come from healthcare, and we see people dying like at any age.
Yeah.
So-
things are crazy.
You need to think about your life today. And again, going back to that point, you cannot just be hustling because you never know what's going to happen tomorrow. Maybe you're surviving. And that's what I think is happening nowadays with people. They were surviving. Oh, we need to survive through 2021. We need to survive through COVID. We need to survive through this. Okay, we survived. But now we're like, okay, we need to survive to 2024. Okay, we almost survived. But now we're like, survive to 2025. We're not going to leave
Surviving is not living.
when the life is going to happen.
Yeah.
And that's a really important point, which I think is so important for men and both women, that you always need to circle back, like ideally every quarter, to all your life balance. But I do understand though, it's so tempting to get more and more doors, more and more cash flow. You're just one deal away.
Well, you also have momentum, right?
Yes.
And
No
like
one to lose.
you want to
Exactly.
build and stack on your existing thing. And to your point about, you got to remember to stop and smell the roses, so to speak. It's not always about the hustle. And I think that's actually true when it comes to people who are already inclined to hustle, right? The entrepreneur, the person who is out there, you probably need to actually make a conscious point to stop.
Mhm.
I think a lot of people's problem is really actually being taught to hustle to begin with, right? I find there's more people that lack hustle than there are people, right? But for the hustlers, you just, throttle yourself, refuel.
Yes, and that's why I think it's a very different advice that they're being like just circulating in the general population and the population of people who are in real estate, men and women too, because the advice that we need is completely different from the advice that like all other people need.
Yeah. Okay.
Other people.
Because other people need like to work to hustle more,
Yeah.
but we need so they are about saying yes to everything. They say that to get to that $1 million, you need to learn how to say yes to everything. But to get to 10 million or like 20 million, whatever they are, you
have
need
to
to
say
learn how
no.
to say no.
Yeah.
So we're more talking about how to say no.
Let's talk about the mindset shift in your journey, because obviously it will be very relevant to a lot of people who are kind of getting into real estate or try to scale up in real estate. So you say you started buying your very first property back in 2013.
Yes.
What got you into real estate? Just
A
very
fear.
quickly.
Fear.
Fear.
Because
Okay.
we were first generation immigrants. We technically just came to Canada 9 months ago.
Mhm.
And our friends, they bought an apartment. And we were like, oh my God, you bought an apartment. Oh my God, you're like a millionaire. And they said,
Like a condo, not apartment, but okay.
Oh, sorry, like a condo.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. Just one condo. And I asked, what's the one, do you regret anything? Something like that I asked. Or like, what would you do differently? And she said, oh, I would do that 10 years ago.
Yeah, that's
So for 10 years, they were postponing that because they were like trying to see what's more efficient, to rent or to own. So I took that advice seriously, and I started like calculating in my mind because my husband was busy. He was working, building his career. I was at home with a baby. Well, he was not a baby. He was like almost 4. But I was at home, but I was the one who was taking care of all the bills and everything and budgeting religiously every month. And I was thinking, okay, what can we do? And how much more expensive that actually is to own than to rent? I put everything into the Excel spreadsheet. There was not many lines, but still. And quickly I realized that it's cheaper to own. It's not cheaper, but it makes more sense.
long term. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was hoping that, okay, maybe even if it's more expensive, I still live in my own condo. I can do whatever I want with my walls,
Mhm.
can paint them any color. And because I value freedom as the highest priority in
Priority, yeah.
life,
Yeah. 100%.
the freedom,
Yeah.
any kind of freedom. Don't tell me what to do, what to think, where to go, like anything. I want to do that myself. Long story short, we bought that apartment, and 3 years later, we sold it with enough profit to have down payment for the bungalow at the lakeshore in Toronto. So coming almost from nothing to the down payment at the lakeshore, I feel like that was a good deal.
Oh yeah. 100%.
Yeah, and with the condo, we lived very close to the university where I went. I had to go to university again and study again 6 semesters to become a public health nurse here. And then by the time I graduated, we were able to move there and buy our first burr. We lived in there. that was a nightmare. My son still remembers that. I'm pretty sure that if one day he's on stage, he will be describing the first night at that property, because that was awful. That was so bad. And we were doing all the work ourselves. Oh no, initially we lost $10,000 to a contractor with whom we had no idea what we were doing. We basically just gave him money and he just basically walked away with it.
Wow.
So, and then after that, we were left just with what we had. And we were just renovating, and we did a beautiful job, and we still own the property. Once we refinanced that property, we were able to start, 'cause that was, I think, like 3 years down the road. But with that money, that's how the ball started rolling.
Mm-hmm.
And then with the refi and like we were doing the perfect burst, we just didn't know how they were called. And then though, I think right after COVID, we realized that those buildings which are smaller, for how long can we keep them with the borrowing under our names? We realized that we need to switch to 6 and more units just to free up, again, speaking about freedom, to free up ourselves from those loans on the personal names. So we do use money of our capital partners, but they are also free from being on title or having that record in their personal credit. So because everything goes to the commercial loans on the corporation.
Right.
So that's another point. Like that's another layer of freedom for me. That's why I love 6 and more units.
Okay, so let's talk about the transition from obviously owning a residential to 6 units. How did you make that decision, right? Jumping from a small residential into the multifamily space? Because I'm sure like between you and your husband, there's going to be a lot of discussion, right? Capital is way more intensive, and then maybe you need to bring another partner to sort of inject the capital to actually achieve that goal.
Yeah.
So I'm sure the mindset is going to be a lot different because you can either go buy another residential, like grow horizontally, but now you're kind of like changing a different asset class.
The ability to learn, because I'm used to learning a lot all the time. That's what probably the healthcare did to me. That's a professional deformation. You constantly know that you need to be learning more from reputable sources. And second is having, it doesn't have to be coaches, so it can be a mentor. But it has to be someone who has been there, done that multiple times, exactly what you want to do, and there should be a peer mentorship support. So you need to be with those who are doing the same thing right now, and because we did really immerse ourselves, and we spent, I don't know, like at least $100,000 on all kinds of mentorship and coaching and all that stuff. I know for sure that we had that back already multiple times in our investment. But that's also to your question. Our capital partners, they put the money into the building, into the corporation, and we don't usually use our money in the same proportion because majority of our money go to the personal growth or to the growth of business behind the scenes.
Yeah, you maintain the expert position.
Yes.
And you cultivate that craft.
Yeah, and we invest in the system that support the separate corporations.
Mm-hmm.
So you JV with these individuals and you structure some kind of an agreement of shares.
Yes, that's usually a shareholder structure.
What is a typical agreement that you use in terms, like people sometimes do the 50-50 structure, other people it's
That really depends on each deal because that would involve our assessment in every case, how much we would need to be involved.
Oh, so you tailor it very heavily.
Based on the responsibility, basically.
Yeah.
I see.
Okay. Yeah. And I should mention that with the environment that we have in Ontario right now, we are going to be switching towards maybe fees for asset management and introducing more fees than we used to because the cash flow is so affected right now that to make sure that the building is making sense for us to keep in the long run, we need to make sure that we have money to provide food on the table.
Yeah.
Because if, say, 3 years ago, you could rely, say, on refinancing or this or that, which is great because appreciation is awesome. But now you have to make sure that you have something to survive because while the cash flow is not the key in our strategy, we always focused on long term, but you have to make sure that you have the cash flow for the building to carry itself through the long term, right?
Yeah.
So we also need to make sure that we select the joint venture partners, letting them know that if you invest with us today, don't expect money tomorrow. And that also comes with another thing. We're very proud that in Horizon Capital, we didn't have even a single cash call in any of our buildings. We were able to protect our capital investors from any interest rates changes or vacancy or renovation. So from that perspective, I find, to me, that's one of the main priorities to protect the capital investors from unexpected cash calls. Because right now in the market like this, people who, again, are understanding the challenges in the real estate, they know that you have to sit still in the market like this. You cannot just say like, oh, let's just sell it, because you're probably going to lose if you sell today. If you didn't sell in 2021, you just better sit still for now.
No, cash cow is not a fun process to go through. Like
No,
we did that back in 2017. Was the only time that we did it, and we just never considered that option ever again.
there are ways to explain to people what's going on, because if the interest rates are rising, so like someone has to cover the loss. Money have to come from somewhere.
Yeah.
And it's not your fault as a real estate investor. And it's totally something which can happen. That's just actually one of the risks in real estate. And even multifamily can get in that situation, right? Especially if it's you just got it, if it's just a baby. You have to keep nourishing the baby. But at the same time, understanding that capital investors are also families, are also professionals who are also struggling maybe with their own mortgage, which may be like,
Yeah.
so you just need to be mindful of that. So that's our priority for now.
A lot of people will have the knowledge that you have, oftentimes from some kind of experience, like they've already messed it up once.
Mhm.
But you obviously avoided some of these scrapes and bruises. Did somebody teach you this,
Oh,
or
we have lots.
Oh yeah. Okay, so if that's the case, have you had it where you've either had to have difficult conversations with people that you've raised capital with, and who have a different intention or direction? And if so, how do you handle those conversations?
No, we didn't, because before we move forward, we need to make sure that we have established relationships.
So this isn't necessarily accredited. These are relationship investments.
They can be both, but
Yeah.
just don't jump into a project together just because a person has money.
No.
Yeah. And
I
sometimes it takes you just maybe several interactions here and there, maybe doing some kind of other project together, not necessarily real estate, and just see how the person reacts, how accountable they are, how they take if they're doing what they're saying. So things like that, like trying to find some ways to see them in action.
So you're vetting them on various levels.
I find that very serious. And in our company, I'm the one who is more involved in that process. And I do take that very seriously. And I can say that because of that, we didn't have those problems. Because once you sign the papers, there's no way back. Unless, again, your relationships and the personality of the person allow you to renegotiate. As an active investor, once you're signing the papers, you're putting yourself in a very vulnerable position, at least based on our work ethics. We prefer to under-promise and over-deliver. So once you sign the paper, make sure that you read the paper before.
Yeah.
And don't try to say like, oh, okay, well, we'll figure out later.
It'll figure you out later. That way.
Balance between active and passive investing was that with some of our capital investors, we used to have registered funds invested in our projects. And we were on the active side of this as borrowers.
Okay.
So that's for that. I didn't have any RSP because for me, RSP is like, God forbid, it's like, just don't do it. Because we always were able to deduct money other ways, again, through real estate. Another beauty of real estate, that there are so many avenues to deduct money from your income. And most of the years, luckily, we were able not to pay taxes because everything was going to the investments. And that's what government likes. Because sometimes people think that if you're not paying taxes, that means that you'll find a way to trick the government. It's actually not the case. It just means that you're doing the things the right way, exactly the things that government want you to do. So because we were investing in the housing market, we were able to get lots of money back. And that's why we didn't have RSP. We have way better ways to invest those money other than lock them up for so many years just for that tiny little return. So that was never a question. We were just using other people's registered funds for our projects. They were happy with a high return, and we were happy that we had the access to their money. So everyone was happy. And then when I left my job, and turned out I didn't even think about that. But I got a mail which was saying that, hey, Alla, you have this and that amount of money in your pension account with the Ontario Municipal Employee System, which is way better than the nursing hoop.
Yeah.
Way better. Why nurses have it worse than municipal workers, right? Yeah, totally. So it's not that it's like a whole lot of money, but it was way too good to leave on the table. So I was like, okay, let me see what are my options. And what I'm doing right now, I'm transferring that money from the OMERS, from the Ontario Municipal Employment System, to Olympia Trust, which is a fairly simple process. And that account is a self-directed account where you cannot take the money out of it, because once you take it out of there, it's just like RSP, you have to pay taxes. But if you keep it there and just tell them, okay, this is my RSP, well, actually that's Lira. If you take that money and just invest in that project for me, and then whatever is the return, you please put it back to that of my account. They will do it for you. So you don't have the direct access to it, but then you decide what exactly is going to be the return on that. And I was so happy to see that, because even say you have $50,000 in your Lira account and you can invest it in, say, project, decent 10% even. So per year, you're going to gain like $5,000 just for nothing.
Doing nothing.
Just because you were more proactive and you didn't leave it with the RSP, what is even there, the return? Like basically virtually none, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
well, actually now it's raised. I think it's like they're pushing 4 or 5%, I think. Something. But anyway, still.
GIC is high because it's
GIC,
guaranteed.
yeah.
But they're using the GIC to invest into real estate, right? And all the other...
but you're talking about
market.
10, so...
Yeah, 10% is that you're doubling.
But 10 is very secure for real estate if you know the investors in whom you... If you're willing to do that in a different way, you can get even higher. It depends how you negotiate that. Because I can invest in your project.
Yeah, 14% plus a 1% lender fee. All of a sudden, that's 15%.
So yeah, that
Every 6
depends.
months, you renew.
Yeah, and if you know what you're doing, you can get really good return on this. And I'm so excited because I used to be on the other side, and I knew that I was bringing the return to other people, but I was more excited about myself that I can get access to that money.
And you're using your surprise money.
Yeah, now I'm using my surprise money. I'm like, oh my God, that's so amazing, because this is basically the first time when I'm a passive investor myself, and it's just like making money.
Now we're playing Monopoly, right? Like
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's
and
amazing.
it's just
Creative
really also
financing.
goes back to that financial literacy.
Yeah.
Until someone, if not real estate, I would never be introduced to that, and I would be thinking forever that my pension plan for the municipal employees is the best possible ever, which is not.
Yeah.
So all this comes into little pieces. And that's why, I would encourage all people who are watching this maybe to go and check out, where is your pension money stored? Because as much as we want to be hustling today and be hoping that we can be strong and independent today, but thinking about pension is not a bad thing. And pension can happen sooner than we expect. And it's really good to be prepared. And if you just think about those, and those are not the only one option. Like a self-directed account with Olympia Trust is not the only one way how you can make that money out of the pension. Just don't get stuck in the idea that if you put it in the RSP account, this is the best you can do with your pension money.
So you talk a lot about financial literacy, and you're obviously very financially literate. You're self-educated in that respect, right?
Yes.
Yeah, you didn't go to school for this. I don't
I
think it
just
will teach you
invested
this.
a lot of money in mentors and coaches again.
Okay,
yeah.
so you did. So
and I
you
read a
did
lot
hire.
of books.
Okay, so you learned, you read, and you hired mentorship, and that condenses the path to learning all this, which is very
Yes.
great. I see people sometimes who own property and they're talking about the tax-free savings accounts. They're talking about the RSPs, and they're talking about GICs, and sometimes they own property. And I'm like, you have the best tax saving shelter you could possibly have, and there are also tons of alternative options to you. Do you think anybody who's working a good job, making a good salary, owns a property, should be putting any kind of money into tax-free savings accounts, GICs, or RSPs? Or are there definitely better, easier options than all of those?
So if the goal is to grow wealth, then no. But if they have very limited ways to deduct the personal income, then yes. Because if you have no other ways to deduct the money, which can be very limited if you don't have any active expenses in the business, it can be very challenging for a professional, for a busy professional who's a doctor or a lawyer. They may have very limited numbers of ways how to deduct. Then even RSP is better. But then make sure that you manage that its account is managed well. Either you manage it yourself or someone else is managing it that for you with no extra fees, but only not as a wealth creation and not even as a wealth protection way.
Use it as a tool, basically.
Just as a tool to avoid extra taxation.
Would you ask people to maybe, if that's the case, start to spend, and they have a property, invest into your own property in order to circulate that? Whether it's saving on some taxes, having things to write off and such.
What do you think I can answer? Of course.
Of course, yeah.
100%.
By the way, a lot of people don't know that they can just do it. Treat the home like a business.
Yeah.
They live in and they don't view it as a business. It's a home. It's not a business.
Oh,
right?
their own home? Buy a rental property.
Yeah, no,
At least one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you can settle. And oftentimes people do exactly that. Like they'll own a home, not necessarily they live in, but they think of it as a home. They've rented it out, but they're not active about it.
No, definitely. They need to get the max out of it. especially in the environment like this, if they're not getting creatively and not thinking how exactly they can maximize all the ways and all the benefits that they can get from owning the property, they can put themselves in a very poor position. Because right now, single family duplex may not necessarily be cash flowing. And if they're not utilizing all those ways to get the money back, they may be in a very dangerous position when they're actually losing money. So they need either invest in themselves and in education, get some of that financial literacy, because gone are those days when they can just buy a single family homes like us, just buy a single family home, rent it out, and it's going to be fine. Right now, it does need a lot of either education for yourself or partner with someone, or maybe just buy several hours with a coach, mentor, someone who will just explain you or at least talk to your accountant.
Yes. This is why they all say get an accountant, but it's people, when they feel like they're not generating enough income, the accountant is the last person on their mind. To save what money, people will say, right? There's no money here.
And I would say that accountant should be the last person maybe too, because accountant just can deal with what you have. They cannot help you with managing the asset. They don't know, for example, the limitation, I don't know, for short-term rentals, for example. While an active investor in Hamilton can tell you that, oh, you know what, don't buy that house because this is how the legislation changed. That would not be making sense for you. Or they can say buy in, I don't know, St. Catharines because they still have short-term rental. I'm just making up stuff. I don't know the legislation here, but that's where the asset management knowledge can help, because in those little things, how exactly can you do a student rental there? Can you do a short-term rental? Can you add more bedrooms? Can you add a bathroom? Would that worth? How much time will it take to get a permit to add an extra bathroom before you try to put it on the market, on the declining market? All those little things, they only can come, I feel, from those who are actively doing in the same thing in this particular area.
Yeah.
So I do this stuff in Oshawa, and I can tell you how long that is going to take in Oshawa. And don't do it in Oshawa. But in Hamilton, your time frames, your municipal bylaws, they're all very different. So for those people who are trying to maximize that income from a single or on a smaller properties up to 4 units, I would suggest go talk to
people who are
doing that.
Yeah.
Even I don't know if they can schedule a call with you, something like half hour maybe. That may be so helpful and put the whole perspective upside down.
Yeah. No, for people especially who are trying to get started and want to do it, the best thing to do, honestly, is to get into rooms with people who are both learning and teaching this stuff, right?
Yes.
And then at least you have clarity, because again, when you just go schedule these sessions, you ask questions, you don't even know the right questions to ask, right? And
yeah, that's one of my favorite saying, actually, that the best question is the question that that you had no idea about.
Yeah.
So you enter those rooms and you have I'm gonna find the answer to this question or to this question, and then you hear questions that other people are asking. And then this is the moment of, oh, you could do that?
Yeah.
Because that question didn't even occur to your mind.
You went to the medical school in Russia, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So there's this element that my fiance argues in favor of many European education systems. She went to the University of Edinburgh, but what she says that a lot of her friends in Europe very much are advocates of is that they teach critical thinking considerably more in Europe than they do in the in North American education system. I don't know how much this is true. This is what she says.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing that I find interesting about it is that self-directed learning has certain limitations, and it requires a lot of critical thinking in order for you to have the self-directed learning and be able to do it effectively.
Mm-hmm.
And it requires you to ask the right questions in order to go and do your Google research, find the books, right? Otherwise, you just don't know where you're going.
Yep.
So this is why mentorship is important. It's not just about, yes, the information's out there, is what information do you need next? Even the sequence of information. People get it wrong. People start learning about step 10 before they learn about step 1. And then they're all confused and they make the wrong steps in the wrong order, right?
Yeah, they may not even need the step 10. They may be all satisfied with step 3 and be happy with achieving all their life goals. And just like Google, life is the quality of your answers depends on the quality of the questions you're asking.
Yeah.
And same with a mentor. A good mentor will never tell you what to do. That was my frustration in the beginning working with mentors. When I come to a mentor, it's okay, so this is the question I have, this or that. And most of them, they're like, what's better for you? What do you want? I'm okay, you don't understand. What's best answer? I'm I don't know what's the best answer. But now I understand they're just guiding, like a psychologist, the psychiatrist at the session, they guide you through what is important to you.
Yeah.
Because the life around you is only the 10% And even especially in real estate, there is no right or good strategy or right or good solution. How much money to put in this project? How much money to put in this project? How much money I want to raise for this project?
Yeah.
What's your goal?
Who started Crua?
So I'm formally the founder of Crua, but I never like when people call me the founder of Crua because I truly believe that this organization, association, is a nonprofit for all Canadian women.
Okay.
So what I do like to hear is that this is our organization. We are all founders, and honestly, without all those groups who are functioning in Canada, we would never be able to exist. Because we're a community of communities, and our role is not to just be focused on women, even though they are the end client, audience, target, focus. Still, we only can do that through other groups by increasing awareness about those groups, by increasing the collaboration between those groups, and increasing awareness of women about that they're not the only women in the room anymore.
Yeah.
There is a lot of successful women already.
Why do you guys want to do a woman event? You're kind of like cutting the investor group in half, right? From not having the male investors.
It's a great question. I'm so glad you asked that because this is a misconception. While I enjoy attending events only for women, because you can discuss totally different topics when it's women only. However, Crua is not women only. It's for women. It's about defining, maybe redefining, what is the woman today? What is the successful woman today? What is a woman in real estate today? And no one knows the answer. That's why women are there to learn more about who they are, because they're developing so fast. We all can barely catch up with this, with the speed. And we cannot define that without men in the room. Because first, men and women, they go hand in hand, side by side. And the market doesn't care what's your gender. That's the motto we have. You need to care what is your gender. Whatever gender you choose, but you have to take the max out of it.
Yeah.
So if you're a woman, you need to be aware that your style may be slightly different than, say, a style of a man. But on the other side, getting back to your question, there should be men also in the room who give you the feedback constantly, because it's like back and forth. It's like a dance, whether we're talking about business or life. And that wouldn't be possible by just having only women in the room. We need to have those men. So we always have, and really appreciate stories like Andrew shared at the conference. We always have men in attendance. We even have staff who are men. For example, our assistant, Louis, who is the front line for all the inquiries, he's a man. And we sometimes get the question, why you have men as an assistant? You totally could have found a woman, but we just said that was the one who was successful during the interview that time, that moment, and we didn't create Crua to be sexist. There is nothing to do about gender.
No, I'm glad you clarified that, because it's not woman only, but it's for women.
Oftentimes, the woman would be stopped by that misconception that like, oh, I'm a woman, I'm probably going to be like mistreated? Is there any word like that?
Yeah, that's
by like male contractors and all that stuff. And then when they see how other women successfully do that and no one cares what's their gender and how exactly they do it, then they switch their focus and then they realize that the only one barrier is in your head. If you do the things right, you still need to think way more about your safety. You still need to think way more about, again, those myths and assumptions that other people may have about you, because you may think that you're so strong and everything, but other people need to also be aware about that. And you need to let them know in advance that you know. So like those are just little steps, but I think that they have all the cards to win.
What is the biggest thing that maybe you hear women say that is an obstacle or challenge?
Oh, so many.
Pick
So
the top-
many.
Start with top three.
Maybe top three.
If we're talking, so that the answer would be like different for general population, because there are the amount of limiting beliefs there is just endless.
Limiting beliefs.
Yeah.
Okay.
And for those who are already in real estate, they also have limiting beliefs, but just on the other level. And for general population, it's generally that financial literacy among women is way less than among men for a specific reason, because like your mom would be definitely like not as the majority of women. So in the majority of families, that's usually a man. And I was just talking with another investor, and her mom, so her dad got paralyzed, and her mom, she's 65. She has no idea, like nothing about bills, about where money come from, where do they go, where are they invested, and what to do whatsoever. Forget investing, forget real estate. And that's pattern that being passed to girls, that you need to be taking care of kids, you need to be taking of, like, the pattern is changing, but the amount of those limiting beliefs that are still being passed through the generations it really stops women from thinking that it's like a good part of your life it's like necessary part of your life to learn about money, that money is not evil. And then if we're talking about those women who are ready to get investing, the major barrier, they think that it's for serious men. What is the serious man? No one knows. But clearly not for a young woman over 30-year-old. Plus, women are all often caught in that pattern that I need to graduate, I need to get married, I need to get kids. Yes, it's getting better in terms of we're more free now to break any kind of patterns. We are more used to the idea that anything you choose is good, but the investment is delayed comparing to men, because for men, it's like graduate, start making money, get independent, and then start thinking about kids and family when you're ready. Especially kids, when you're ready.
Women that you're seeing in your community with a bit of limiting belief, how do you actually overcome that mental barrier and to actually get them believe in themselves and start taking some action?
So that tribe at Krua is a completely different story. Those women, they're not just regular women. And in other female groups too, they are already got rid of so many of limiting beliefs. And I understand what you're talking about. And I think that for me, what was really helpful to see the community, the society more like with more open eyes was that I worked in public health for 7 years. And there we take a look at the whole community, at the whole society, and the solution that we needed to come with there, like for everyone, for a virtual person of any background, of any situation, things like that. So that really helped me to understand that other people are not necessarily like me. And I understand that I sometimes can push way too far. And that's another side, that it's important not to push too far to a difficult situation. I would say that at Krua, we have the other side of the coin, when if you can do something, it doesn't mean you need to do that. If you can, if you're so strong and you're so cool and you can take the hammer and like hammer this wall just like a man could do, you don't need necessarily to do that.
It's who, not how.
Yeah, maybe who, not how is your solution. Because in that room, we are talking about high achiever women. So the topics which are more popular there is how not to get burned out, how stop achieving those goals that are cool for everyone, but maybe not your goal. The fact that you can achieve that again is not necessarily that you want to achieve that. And that's about shiny object syndrome, about you can do it all. Yes, I can do it all. I have 3 kids. I have quite a good portfolio of real estate. I walked away from being a medical doctor. I walked away from municipal government position in Canada. I can do it all. Oh, I'm married for 23 anyways, feels like 50 years. But the fact that you can do it all, I can do it all, it doesn't mean that you need to do it all. But then it takes the hardest thing to do, to step back and see, what do I want? So
how do women with I guess lack of confidence get into this league?
Actually, yeah.
There is no way.
Well,
Confidence comes from action. Confidence comes from accomplishments. We can help you with how to accomplish something. When you see how other women accomplish something, you can accomplish that too. And that's how your confidence is going to grow. Market doesn't care what's your gender. We go back to that every single time at every meeting. Market doesn't care. To buy property, to renovate it, to turn over the tenants, sometimes you don't have to be in that country if you know what you're doing. But you need to care what's your gender first to be able to gain the confidence talking to your tribe. And when I say tribe, it doesn't have to be women. It's just that women can help you with more aspects of your life when you need to achieve. For example, like even if when you're pregnant, what asset class you may want to switch to, what strategy you may want to switch to and prepare for the next couple of years. Because obviously when you're growing a child, you can't do it all. You can bring your child to the construction side and like do it all. But maybe it's just better to switch to, say, maybe passive investing for that moment, or maybe to do a short-term rental, delegate something else and make sure that for these 2 years you're more focused on cash flow instead of the appreciation, which maybe is your like general strategy. You don't have to do it all in every single moment. And yes, to your point, you don't have to do it all yourself, but you have to be strategic. You have to take into account all the important things that you need, and you need to be proactive. Probably just like a man, it's just that those things on your life balance will maybe just slightly different. You just need to make sure.
I mean, the fact that you mentioned pregnancy the way that you did, that's a pretty big difference. I mean, the fact that you mentioned that into the consideration requires a lot more maneuverability and adjustment to your strategy. Some people get stuck and aren't able to adjust. And from what you described, it almost makes me feel like you'd be more accepting of needing to adjust.
And also understand that it's not competition with the same approach, right? Because obviously a woman has a stronger influence, in my opinion, with a networking context versus men probably on the physical conditions it can accelerate a little bit.
So I always, to what you said, why women has all those like good points, like advantages, and you also like kind of repeating like that's in other aspects.
Yeah, this might be a male perspective.
Yeah, and what I encourage women is like when you think about market and real estate, just don't think about your, like when you're focusing on real estate, it sounds crazy in the context that I lead CRUA and all that stuff. Just don't think about your gender. The only one thing you need to know that your gender doesn't limit you. So when you're talking about investing, don't think about your gender. If there is a barrier which will occur naturally, whichever it is, like you're not physically strong, you're strong enough, or you don't have this, or you don't have, just that's okay. Figure out how to overcome that barrier. And I can assure you that many men has exactly the same barrier. They're not strong enough. I mean, physically not good enough, say, with the networking piece of that, because real estate is about the relationship, right? It's not about brick and mortar. Just don't focus on your gender for that moment. Focus on the barrier, overcome it, move. And then when we talk about all the other like work-life balance, just make sure that you're not oblivious to the fact that you're a woman. If you want to have a baby, have that baby. Sometimes people ask me, going back to that work and life balance, women would approach me saying, oh, how you married for 21 years? Like, what's the secret? When should I get married if I plan this and this, like acquisition in my real estate? You get married when you're in love. You don't plan like when you get married, when you have money for marriage, like for a beautiful wedding. You don't like, I mean, if it's important for you, that's okay. Plan your beautiful wedding. That's like whatever. But don't make your life and the women things that are important to you to get under that priority of real estate investing. That's the key. Live your life and make the real estate investing working towards that.
Is there any other common questions that you might be asked by other women who are like hesitant about getting real estate, even though they knew that even though they know that might be a right decision?
The questions that they have are often, for example, how do I get my partner on board?
Oh,
that's a good one.
Yeah, that's a good one. I never thought about it.
That question is mostly coming for families where, just like you said, like a woman is leading the process. And it's very similar to families where a man is leading all the processes, but he needs to get the wife's signature.
Yeah.
So the issue itself is pretty much the same. It's just that the genders are flipped.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and women ask that question because they don't have experience. How do you convince your husband? But the answer is often the same. It's just that you need to, just like you said, you need to ask your partner to hear the same idea from someone else, which means to listen to that podcast, or maybe to bring her to that event.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be a women-oriented event. If it's CRUA, that's awesome. But it doesn't have to. For example, at one of the meetings, the couple shared that that's actually was the woman who was leading the process in real estate, and the man needed to hear the same idea from someone else. So they went to one of the real estate events, and when he heard that from someone else, it clicked, and he's like, "Okay, tell me more." That's what he said to his wife.
That's also kind of annoying.
But
right?
then in other
them.
families, it's the other way. It's usually, and that's what we get, what I often get on more personal connection side of connection with the real estate investors who are men, and they ask me, "Oh my God, that's so amazing that women are interested in real estate. My wife couldn't care less about investing. How can I get her on board?" And that's what I tell him. If you want, you can invite her to one of the CRUA meetings, or you can, I can suggest maybe some other groups, because all groups in Canada, they are slightly different with a little bit different focus, or Senex may be different. So tell me more about your wife. I'll tell you where she can go, which event. And then when she is there, she can be just a fly on the wall and listen, what other women are doing, hear how deep is that stuff, how successful they are, that it's not just about discussing interior design stuff. That can be a really... That's a real heavy lifting in real estate. And then she just listened to that once, twice, and then third time she's going home and saying, "You know what I heard?" And then she's more and more involved. And oftentimes the husband would say, "Oh, we're actually doing that." And she's like, "Oh, really? Tell me more." And she's getting involved. She realized that this is the real life. Again, that the real estate goes hand to hand with the work and life balance.
Or even for a married couple or a couple that the guy is already doing real estate and really want to get his partner sort of involved, right?
Yeah.
Send them over to your way.
Yeah, and our meetings, as I said, because they're not women only, they're never like pink, glamorous, sparkle champagne. That they are like still like very real estate oriented. The goal is not to be like scary and dominating woman. Actually, the goal is to be opposite, like to stay warm and understanding. The goal is to be able to switch quickly.
Ultimately, I think you left us a lot of really good information, and especially for people who want to learn from you. You are clearly very, very wise. You have experience, you've learned a lot, and you obviously have a good understanding of people in terms of understanding what they need and where that it helps, right? If anybody wants to get in touch with you, how do they reach out to you?
The best way is probably to go to Instagram and find Lady Gina, because Lady Gina is my real last name and my husband is Lady Jean. So if you just type Lady Gina in Instagram, it's most likely will be me, myself. And if you want to send me an email, you can do it at ala@creo.ca.
Perfect. We'll make sure there's some info in the description.